Hi, this is Jared Walton again. That last video, I think people are confused about who I am and what I do and how familiar I am with hardware. I'm the GPU tester for Tom's Hardware. Just if that's not clear, I've been doing this for 20 plus years. Not new at all to this. So the point of the video wasn't to say, hey, I bought a card that's unstable in all games. It was to say, hey, MSI, who sent me the card, and Nvidia, who provides the drivers and reference specs and all that stuff for these GPUs, I'm having problems with the MSI card at certain settings in certain games. So I've tried a bunch of things. I've tried setting the PCI Express slot, PCIe, PCI Express slot to 4.0 instead of 5.0, didn't work. I took out the PCAT, didn't work. PCAT is back in place. I tried, let's see what else. I've tried to switch between silent and performance modes on the card, which switches between 2512 megahertz boost and 2565 megahertz boost. The reference card, the Founders Edition, has 2407 megahertz boost. Those boost clocks shouldn't be that important. I've seen 2.8 gigahertz and higher on the Founders Edition, so you're able to go well above the boost clocks, but they have pushed it over 100 megahertz higher with the Suprim Liquid SOC. We saw the same thing with the 4090 launch, where at launch certain cards with factory overclocks were having problems. And driver updates generally fixed that after a few weeks or a month or so. It's been a couple of years, so I don't remember the exact time frame. So just as one final example here, same settings, 1440p Ultra 240 Hertz using DisplayPort 2.1 hooked up to an OLED 240 Hertz monitor. Graphics, this is the Ultra preset, except I have turned off adaptive quality and I've turned off motion blur. There is no DLSS or any other upscaling enabled. So this is native. This time, however, I've dropped the GPU power limit to 90%, and I've dropped the GPU clocks by 158 megahertz because I'm on the performance profile. So that should result in the same 2407 megahertz boost, give or take. I mean, it gets a little fuzzy because we are dealing with factory overclocked cards and BIOS settings that may not be exactly the same. It's also not the same PCB as Nvidia's reference design. That could be a factor. Tough to say for certain. I'm hopeful, though, with this underclock and underpower settings that everything will run fine now. That's not the point. The point was to say, hey, MSI, Nvidia, your factory settings right now are not working. I'm not trying to figure out how to make them work. That's not my job as a reviewer. My job is to write how the card works and test its performance. And right now, performance is not that different from the Founders Edition, despite the theoretically higher factory overclock. There's a lot of things that go into that. Stability has been a problem in the games that I've mentioned. Assassin's Creed Mirage and Avatar Frontiers of Pandora. Oh, well, there you go. Even with 158 megahertz underclock and power reduction, I'm still getting crashes. So again, I'm not trying to find the fix. That is not my job. That's not the internet's job. We can theory craft all we want. The reality is either my sample card, this single unit, has some issue that's preventing it from being stable, or I don't know if I'm in frame here, or it's endemic to all of the MSI Suprim Liquid X cards. I don't know that for sure. I've only tested one card. So that's it. Still unstable, even with a pretty decent underclock. I could try underclocking even more. Sure, we're here. Why not? Let's go ahead and do that. This is totally impromptu. Like, I'm not trying to make... This is why this is on my channel rather than Tom's Hardware's channel, because I'm just futzing around as a reviewer trying to figure out enough information to pass along and say, hey, this isn't working. So, MSI Afterburner again. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, there it goes. The mouse started stuttering. You probably couldn't see that. So these are the settings I had. 90% power limit, minus 158. Let's keep the 90% and let's just try minus 250. I feel like if it's like the 4090, we were getting clock speed excursions where power and such would be low enough that the game, or that, what do you call it, the card would boost too high. And there are limits to how far you can go, and it's based off of voltage and other things, but frequency voltage limits. Like, you can't just say, oh, the card's running cool enough, let's boost 300, 400 megahertz higher and expect full stability. And so if it is boosting a little too high, that could cause problems. Actually, I can look at that. That'd be interesting, wouldn't it? Let's see. Again, very impromptu. It's why it's here rather than elsewhere. Oh, did that? Oh, there it is. Okay. So this is a PCAP file showing everything that it spits out. This is your MS between presents, MS between display change, which is the newer metric. What I'm after is GPU clocks. So let's go ahead and do that one. We'll make higher more potentially alarming. So we're not getting above 2760 at the clocks at the underclock I specified. It's running at 2752, 2760. So my clock speed limit seems to have taken effect. GPU temperatures are not a problem. 47 degrees. GPU utilization peaked at 96, 97%. PCAT power total. So you've got Nvidia power. You have Nvidia's software reported power, and you have the PCAT device reported power. Let's see, where's the Nvidia? Nvidia with USB, GPU only. Yeah, so we don't want the USB power included, although nothing's connected, so it looks like the USB is the same. I'm sure you can't read these numbers, but I'll tell you what they say. So PCAT has finer granularity. It updates about every 0.1 seconds. And we saw peak power of 387, 395. Here, let's just do a max. Peak power of 395.65 watts. The software reports peak power of 343 watts. That's the difference between PCAT and the software monitoring. Clock speed topped out at 2760 megahertz. So those should all be reasonable values. I've dropped the clock further. Oh, Nvidia app is not responding. That's always fun. Maybe my underclock is not making the card fully happy. Yeah. All right. Let's try it again. Sorry if this is a slow, longer than you want video. What bothers me is people commenting where they looked at the headline and they make some assumptions, and I say it that way for a reason. Like, you know what they say about assuming, making an ass of you and me. Like, please, people, watch the video. Don't just fire off a stupid comment. Like, I've had everything in here from people saying, oh, well, you shouldn't use an HDMI 2.0 cable. Yeah, I'm not. I'm using a DisplayPort 2.1 DP80 cable that came with the monitor here. And the card supports it. And it's, I don't know if it's using DSC or not, display stream compression. I've tried lots of things with the power connectors. They're not running hot. You saw that PCAP power limit. It was hitting less than 400 watts when it just crashed. That was with my underclock. So that was lower than maybe before, maybe. I mean, even with a 90% power limit, 90% of 575 watts is still something like 515 watts or some value. So now I've dropped the clocks by 250 megahertz, so we should be about 100 megahertz lower than before. We were getting 2760 before. Right now in the menus, I'm seeing 2617. And it's not crashing at the menu. I've never seen it crash at the menu. It's once we're in the game proper, or right as it loads into the game proper. So we see a short bump up to 500, then it loads into the game, and here we are in the game. And it crashed again. Wow. So it's entirely possible it's a flaky card. I don't have an answer for whether that's true or not. It's possible that the firmware of the card is flaky. That seems pretty reasonable assumption, but I can't test that. I don't have multiple cards. I don't know what MSI has done. Like the last time we had stuff with the 4090, it was, I don't know that you'd say, yeah, the card was kind of rushed out. Like the third party manufacturers, they don't get the cards months and months in advance to test, or the GPUs, because when they do, they get leaked and benchmarked and all this stuff inappropriately. And so often they're not getting the cards until right near launch. And I'm not saying like days before or weeks before, but it might be 2 or 3 months before instead of like 6 months before. Nvidia probably has had the GPUs in-house for 6 months or more, and they've been trying to fix things, and that gives them more time for tuning. But they had their own custom PCB for the Founders Editions that no one else is using, and so that also can create differences. I should also note that that last crash that you just saw, that was, can you read that? Yeah, I hope so. That was with the PCI link speed set to Gen 4. We'll turn it back to auto. And that's it. No secret, the RTX 5070 Ti launches on the 20th. I have a card in hand. I can't show it to you, but reviewers have the cards. We are testing. The MSRP cards, there is no reference model for the 5070 Ti. So the MSRP priced cards reviews can go up on the 19th, and then the factory overclock cards can go up on the 20th. We'll have performance data then. That's all I'm going to do for this MSI thing right now, because I've got to get back to testing 5070 Ti and the competing cards, because it's not just the 5070 Ti I need to test. I need to also test the 4070 Ti, 4070 Ti Super, and 7900 XT to see where those perform on the new test bed, on the new test suite. And once again, let me reiterate that these stability problems, I did not see them when I tested the 5090 Founders Edition, or the 4090 Founders Edition, 4080 Super, 5080 Founders Edition. None of those have crashed. This is purely This is purely that MSI card that's having stability problems. That's it. Thanks for watching. Please be respectful. I'll block you from my channel if you say anything really stupid. Because it's my channel. It's not monetized. I'm not getting paid for this. I'm just doing testing, and I needed to pass along some information. That's what this amounts to. And if this video makes you angry, makes you think I'm an idiot, whatever, that's fine. That's not the point. The point was just to show, like, brand new hardware, brand new architecture. I know people are saying, oh, it's just Ada Lovelace Redux, and it's similar to Ada Lovelace, but let's talk about that just briefly to wrap this up. Nvidia went from 64 full CUDA cores per SM, per streaming multiprocessor. That means full being it had FP32 and INT32 support on those CUDA cores. Extended math operations can only happen on, I can't remember, 1/8 of the cores or 1/16 of the cores, something like that. Maybe it's 1/64. FP64 is, there's only one per 64. Anyway, that was Ada. Then Ada also had, like Ampere before it, 64 cores, CUDA cores that only did FP32. With Blackwell, all 128 CUDA cores are full citizens. They have FP32 and INT32 support. So that's changed. They reworked some things with scheduling to support neural operations, as they're calling them, basically tensor core operations integrated into shaders. I don't know how much of a change that was. It was a change. I don't think it was substantial, but they did change something in the hardware scheduling to make that work. So driver changes might have to happen. GDDR7 versus GDDR6, GDDR6X, that's a change. FP4 support in the tensor cores is one of their big changes. That's why they're pushing AI. And that one is, I don't think that big of a change either, because they didn't like totally revamp the cores. They only changed something in the tensor cores to support FP4 mode. So there are changes, they're not massive. There's also an AI, what did they call it? ACM? AMP, AI management processor, that's what it's called. There's something with that in the new ones. I don't know how complex that was, but if you look at die sizes for the 5090 compared to the 4090, and you go, okay, they went from 144 SMs up to 192 SMs, that's for the full chip. And the 4090 had 128 enabled, and the 5090 has 170 enabled. But when you look at die sizes, they went from 608, I think, millimeters squared to 750 millimeters squared, I think. It's something like that. Anyway, that die size increase basically matches up pretty nicely with the increase in the number of SMs. I think each SM is slightly larger because they have a few of these tweaks for the AMP and the neural rendering, FP4 support, and full citizen CUDA cores. Those things require tweaks to their drivers. 4090 at launch, we had excursions into higher voltages, higher frequencies that would cause instability. I've just underclocked this thing 250 megahertz and I'm still seeing the problem. I feel like it's kind of, MSI needs to do something with their firmware or via Nvidia's drivers to fix whatever is causing crashes. I don't have the low-level access to sit there and monitor all this stuff, and I'm just a tech reviewer. I'm not going to fix it. No one on the internet is going to fix this. It's going to be the Nvidia and MSI engineers that fix this. And that's it. I've rambled long enough. I think the 5090, like, there's a bunch of people angry about the pricing. AI is a big deal right now, and these are good for AI. That's not necessarily what's driving the price up. They're using the same manufacturing facilities as Nvidia is using for their full Blackwell data center GPUs. And the chip is a little bit smaller. We don't know exact die size on the GB200, I don't think. But GB200 uses 2 dies, and you get only maybe 60 of those per wafer. You can probably get like 70 of these per wafer. But if you're able to sell each of those 60 dies for about $40,000 a piece in a graphics unit for a data center, compared to $2,000, like what are you going to make? You're going to make the data center parts. You're not going to make tons and tons of 5090s. They'll make enough. I think there's probably as many 5090s at launch as there were 4090s, and they still sold out, and they're going to continue to sell out for a while. Prices would have been lovely if they were lower, but that's not what the market is dictating, unfortunately. And the scalpers, even if they were priced, say, $1,500, the scalpers would be just lining up in droves to buy them and sell them, resell them for higher costs. Okay, see you later. I have no idea how in focus I was on this last section. It might look terrible. If it does, I don't know. I'll probably post it anyway, because again, this is not a professional channel that I'm getting paid for. This is my ramblings off script. Have a great one. Bye. Time to swap cards.